welcome to episode 45 of Book Writing Tips, quick tips for new and seasoned authors, and I am your host, Alba Arango. In today's episode, I thought it'd be kind of fun since it is Nevada Reading Week this week, and I've been celebrating by doing school visits as an author, which is always fun. But I thought, why should Reading Week be restricted to like elementary school or middle school or even high school? Reading should be for everyone, and that goes especially true for authors. If you are an author or are thinking of writing a book or in the middle of writing a book or have already written a book, reading should be one of those things that you do commonly in practice every day, or at least every other day, or at least every week. But there should be reading in your schedule at some point in time to keep you in that mode to make you a better author. So what I thought I would do today is go over some reading recommendations for authors. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about one of my favorite topics, reading. Alrighty then. Today's episode will be in two parts as always. In part one, I'm going to go over some recommendations I have that are nonfiction. So some of them include craft books and other books that I think could be really helpful for authors of all stages, from those of you just starting out in the, writing realm, and those of you who already published several books. It's always good to read books about writing and that have to do with the craft itself. And in part two, I'm going to give you some of my personal fiction recommendations, things that I think all authors would really benefit from, not just because, they're really good books, but because they are books that readers have really, really loved, and I think can show you as an author some cool ways to get your message or your story across to the reader. So let's get started with part one, the nonfiction books. Now, my first recommendation is really a book that if you do not own this book, I really think it is beneficial for all authors of any stage. Whether you're just thinking of starting a book, whether you've started writing a book, whether you're in the middle of writing a book, whether you have just finished writing a book and are trying to decide how you want to publish it, or if you've already published a book and are going to write another book, I really think that this book has something for everyone. So the book is The Business of Being a Writer by Jane Friedman. And I know I've talked about this book in several of my podcast episodes because to me, this book is really, really one of those just books that everyone should probably read if they're a writer. She has stuff in there for everyone. So examples of what I'm talking about, she's got stuff in there on developing your platform. Now, if you haven't published a book yet, now is the perfect time to develop your platform. That way, when your book is ready to be published, you already have an author platform done. Now, if you've already published a book, we, myself included, can always benefit from looking at how to further develop our platform and expand our platform to more places. So that is definitely something I think everyone can benefit from. She also has a section on traditional publishing today in today's age versus self-publishing in today's age. And I love it because she just set up the second edition last year, and she's revised a lot of it to actually be more modern than her first book, which was also a really good book, by the way. But I love it because it's like totally like in now, in like the first century, in the 2020s. And I love it. So I would definitely recommend this book. And FYI, she has an entire section, I think it's like 7 or 8 chapters dedicated to how to make a living as a writer. So yeah, whether you've already published a book or you're thinking of publishing a book, there's some pretty interesting things there of ways to make money as a writer. Now, if you do not follow Jane Friedman on her very many different social media platforms like Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, I would recommend following her because she posts a lot of really interesting article links. And if you haven't subscribed to her newsletter, she does have a free version. So if money's tight, definitely at least sign up for the free version because she has so much stuff to share. And the paid version, even more so. So definitely I would recommend her newsletter or that, but I would definitely recommend her book. And I will definitely put the link to that book in the description. It's probably the only book link I'm going to have in the description. I've noticed that if I put too many links in some of the platforms that the podcast is on, doesn't like it. So I'm just going to only put the link to this book in there because to me, this is probably the most important book of all the books I'm going to be talking about. So again, it's The Business of Being a Writer by Jane Friedman. And an FYI on the link I'm going to put, it is an affiliate link, so I will make some money if you buy it through my link. Trust me, it's not anything for me to retire on. I may make like 20 cents on the book or something like that. But hey, if everybody buys it through my link, then I can actually, buy a cup of coffee or something. And FYI, that money does not come out of Jane Friedman's pocket. Amazon will still pay her full amount. The 20 to 20 cents that I get would come from Amazon's pocket. So yay, give it to Amazon. Give me 20 cents. Anyways, so okay, moving on because you're all like, okay, now you're rambling. All right. Other books that I think would be beneficial for all authors to look into, some form of a craft book on writing, especially if you are like newer to the writing world. My favorite is On Writing by Stephen King. It doesn't mean you have to read Stephen King's books, although I might actually recommend reading his books because he is a really prolific and great writer. But I think his book on crafting the novel is really well written. So that might be one you want to look into. If you want a different book, because you're like, I just can't do Stephen King. Then okay, it's all good. You don't have to. But here's another one that I really, really like too, and that's called Steering the Craft by Ursula K. Le Guin. And be careful, she updated it. She has the newest version was 2015. Her original book, which sold really, really well and was a very good read as well, was back in 1998. So she wanted to modernize it. So she did so in 2015. And I think it actually came out really, really good. So if you're looking for a different craft book, maybe not on writing, maybe you've already read On Writing, maybe you're looking for something that's a little bit different, that's a really good book too. And my last recommendation for nonfiction is really one for all authors. And to me, actually, the more you've already written, like if you've already published like 7 or 8 books, I think the more you will appreciate this book. And that is The Writing Life by Annie Dillard. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. She has it's broken up into like several different, I guess essays, maybe you'd call them, but they're perfect. I mean, because she talks about like the things that, people just don't really necessarily talk about as writers. And that is like, hey, you're staring at a blank page and the blank page is staring at you. Now what? And so she's got some really cool anecdotes and some humor, and The Writing Life is a really good book. I'd recommend that one as well. So these are all books that, again, as a writer can get you into that mode where you're like, that's right, I'm a writer. I'm reading books about being an author. And if you're new to the writing thing, oh my gosh, it's such a cool feeling to be reading these books and be like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is about me. This is meant for me to help me in my career as a writer. So I definitely think any book that can help you in your mind come to terms with the fact that you are a writer, an author, I think that's just really cool. All right. So before we get to part 2 and my recommendations for fiction, it's time for the crazy law / writing prompt. And those of you who are new to the podcast, every week I give you a crazy law. And this is a law that once upon a time was a real law in history. And your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is just to write a short story about the law. And it can be whatever kind of short story you want, it's for you. And maybe you never know, that short story might come in handy someday for a writing contest. But it is always very cool to stretch, your writing muscles and give yourself a little bit of a distraction from your work in progress. So here we go. This week's crazy law. In Kalamazoo, Michigan, it is illegal to serenade your girlfriend. Aw, that's kind of sad. I think it'd be really cool to be serenaded. I want someone singing outside my window. But at the same time, I could definitely write some pretty cool stories about why they would have to make that a law. But there you go. Anyways, that's your crazy law for this week. All right, let's move on to my recommendations for fiction. Now, fiction is relative, right? Everybody enjoys reading different fiction. You are all out there writing, in different genres, in different subgenres. So I really can't give you like a recommendation for your specific niche because I haven't read every single niche and I don't read in every single niche. But what I can do is give you some general ideas of some books that I think might be good for everyone to read because these books really made an impact on readers across the board and in some cases across time. So let's start with the one I really think if you are a children's author or a fantasy author, even a sci-fi author in a way, it might be good for all of you. And actually it might just be good for everyone. And that is the Harry Potter books. And I already know that I turned some of you off right there. Like, oh man, there is just no way I am reading Harry Potter. I remember talking to one English teacher and she was like, I absolutely refuse to read it. I refuse. I just refuse to read it. And I thought, okay, to each his own. But let me just kind of as an author, kind of give you a little bit of advice. And again, take it with a grain of salt. Take my advice or not. But we're talking about a set of books that the New York Times had to literally create an entire separate category for children's books because the Harry Potter books were number one on the New York Times bestseller list for so many weeks and so many months going into years that a lot of authors complained that they could never be a number one, New York Times bestselling author because the spot was always taken by a Harry Potter book. So if the books are that popular, and they have across time made so much money, maybe they're worth looking into. Her world building is phenomenal. Everyone wants to be a part of it. There's theme parks stamped on that. That's how popular these books are. So if you write for children, if you're writing any kind of either sci-fi or fantasy where world building is needed in your book, I would strongly advise just reading the Harry Potter books because there must be something that she did right that would make her books so very popular. And I love them too. And I'm not really a big fantasy reader and I loved her books. So that is my definite recommendation for probably even all authors. How popular were those books? Now, let me get a little bit more niche, but that doesn't mean that you should tune it out because really good writing is for everyone. If you write mystery, though, and you've never read an Agatha Christie book, she's known as the Queen of Mystery for a reason. Yes, her books are really popular, but it's the way she writes them. They're so well written. And yes, some of her books maybe wouldn't fly today. Some of them, the murder doesn't take place for almost halfway through the book, but it is her style of writing. Read it for her style of writing. She is an amazing author. And if I had to pick one of her books to recommend, I would definitely do And Then There Were None. I think that's probably her most popular book, and there is a reason for it. It is very, very, very interesting and well written. And again, it doesn't matter if you don't write or read mystery. Reading books that are well written in any genre can help you as an author. So think about that. Now, if you're into sci-fi, the father of sci-fi is Jules Verne. And yes, his books are dated, right? He wrote them over a century ago, but they carry through time. And if you need to build a separate world, again, good for fantasy as well. If you need to build a different world, he was a master of it. His books are brilliant. And again, even if you don't read sci-fi or fantasy, reading well-written books of any genre are going to help you as an author. So why not read the best? Now, one last one is going to be horror, and that is Stephen King. I don't think there's any author that has written horror probably more prolifically or well-writtenly. Is that a word? Well-writtenly? Well, we're going to make it a word for my podcast. Well-writtenly than Stephen King. And I don't really read horror, but I have read one. And again, I don't really read horror, and I probably won't read another one because it's not my genre. But wow, can he tell a tale? Can he make it so you're like, oh my gosh. Yes, he can. So there you go. Those are my recommendations for fiction. Of course, I would definitely, if you're going to do reading the genre you are writing in, especially if you are a niche or if you're writing cozy mysteries, stick with cozy mysteries. But these are, in general, books that are by really well-written, prolific authors who really mastered the niche that they were writing in. So there you go. Of course, if you have more recommendations that you want to give, you are more than welcome to leave them in the comments for other authors. And other than that, I drop a new episode of the podcast every Wednesday. And so until next week, please stay safe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful week.